Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the North Lincolnshire series, a district of 56 parishes in the north of Lincolnshire. Let's see which one we're visiting today. Okay, today in North Lincolnshire we're in a place that's got a heck of a lot. So much so, it was so difficult to plan a route around this one. There's a lot of dead-end streets. There isn't really a circular walk here, but I've managed to find one. So hopefully I cover the main bits. But a lot of the things here are actually in the environs around the village, including a medieval settlement, a former RAF base, and a very nice bridge. This is Hibaldstow. This North Lincolnshire episode is sponsored by Past Days, a family history blog by June Terrington. You'll find her link in the description. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Hibaldstow is a village and civil parish in North Lincolnshire, situated on the B1206 and B1207 roads some 4 miles south of Brigg and the M180 at junction 4. Hibaldstow was founded as a Roman legionary roadside fort on Ermine Street, the road from Lincoln to the Humber, and later it became a posting station. In much more recent times, it's had history with the RAF. You may have noticed the aircraft depicted on the village sign. Trust me, there's a lot to talk about in this place. Walking up Station Road, it's not long before we come across our first landmark, Hibaldstow Village Hall, an ideal location for parties and events with good facilities, plenty of room and good parking. This is also where one of the parish notice boards can be found. There's another not far away at the church hall, which we'll pass later. This leads us onto Hibaldstow's playing field, which sits between the B1206 and B1207. We can take a shortcut across this as we head for the Beck side area. Basic info time. There's a decent sized play area and facilities for all ages here. Hibaldstow Cricket Club play here as well. They play in Division 2 of both the Lincolnshire County League and also the North Lindsey League. Apparently, they have one of the best cricket squares in the local area. This next section is very residential, so let's discuss how Hibaldstow got its rather peculiar name. It hasn't always been known as Hibaldstow for a start. In the 7th century it was called Cecesag. Thank God it's not called that now. That's very hard to say. The modern name derives from Saint Hybald or Hygebald, a Northumbrian missionary who was described as a shadowy figure. 3 churches around the village became dedicated to him when he was made a saint. The name Hibaldstow comes from the Old English Hygebald and stow. Hiboldestou literally means place where St Hybald is buried. Here's a Beck. We'll see this a few times. Cop for some demographics next. Hibaldstow appears in the Domesday Book as Hibaldstow. Variations in the spelling are many, even with a single document. We're out onto Church Street now, and this is an area where there are numerous amenities, like for example Hibaldstow Surgery on the corner of Ford Lane. You're fine too if you need your hair doing here. Over the road we have a salon. This is Zen Hair Designs. I was also interested in the building with the curved roof here too. Then we have the church hall a few paces to the east. I couldn't find a lot about this, but I do know it holds Slimming World classes on a Wednesday evening. Church Street Stores is one of a couple of retail facilities in the village. The largest of these is a co-op store. Well, we are in Lincolnshire after all. That's a little further around the route. And Church Street is aptly named because it's where we find Hibaldstow's church. You'll have to excuse the noise of the grass cutters here. It was rather loud. So it was only just now that I myself made the connection between St Hybald and Hiboldestou. All of a sudden, a lot of things start to make sense. Let's go and have a look at the church. Hiboldstow's Grade 2 listed Anglican church is unsurprisingly dedicated to St Hybald. In 1885, Kelly's Directory noted a church of early English style here. It consists of a chancel with vestry, a nave of 4 bays, a north aisle and a west tower with 3 bells. The chancel was rebuilt in 1866 and the nave in 1876 by Fowler of Louth. During the latter rebuilding, the original tower fell, only being added back in 1958. Here's the separate cemetery, which is just across the road. Our route takes us away from the church briefly before heading back to it via Barnside, Beckside and East Street. Here's a bit more about St Hybald, as it's the first time we've come across him. He was a Saxon saint who lived sometime between 664 and 690. He was also known as Higbald, Hygebald or Hygebald, and Hiboldstow's church is one of only 4 to bear his name. All 4 of the churches in question are in Lincolnshire. 3 are in North Lincolnshire, Hibaldstow, Manton and Scorby, and the 4th is in Ashby de la Launde in North Kesteven. So now we're going down Ings Lane, our next major destination being the school, and we're heading sort of towards the south of the village, and this is where all those dead-end streets seem to be, and this was the hardest bit of the route to plan. I think though I found a route around. A lot of the street names now make reference to crops like wheat and rye. As such, the road we're about to go down is called Hopfield. Kent Drive is a bit of an odd one out in that regard. A lot of housing in this part of the village is similar to this, however, so this was a worthwhile street to go down. Back onto Hopfield we have Hibaldstow's primary school next. I had to be careful here as lots of school children were around. The uniform here is a lovely bright blue colour. This next street was something of a godsend. Without this area of new builds there would be no way of getting from the school back to East Street, as Hibaldstow lacks connecting footpaths. It's not surprising that some of the street names make reference to agriculture. Agricultural production of the parish was chiefly wheat, barley and turnips. Principal landowners in Hibaldstow were the Duke of St Albans, the very same who we spoke about in neighbouring Redbourne, and Sir Hugh Arthur Henry Cholmeley. So I'm well aware there will be people from Hibaldstow who are watching this episode wondering why I haven't gone to all those streets at the south of the village. They're all dead ends. I looked for ages to try and find footpaths that link them together, but there aren't any. It doesn't help me with a circular walk. Anyway, that's brought us out here at the Methodist Church and the Methodist Hall, which is right next door. This United Free Methodist Chapel was built in 1865. Kelly's Directory notes both a Wesleyan and a primitive Methodist chapel in the village, the Wesleyan one being on Redbourne Road. More on the chapel shortly, but first a rare spot. Check out this peacock, freely roaming the streets in this part of the village. Tame as you like, it was also very loud and very beautiful. The map on the website Januki points to East Street as being the location of the primitive Methodist chapel, which apparently closed in 1946. As we come to the end of East Street, we'll encounter shortly an old schoolhouse. This was built in 1873 or 1874, depending on your source, and it was a board school. Here it is. It's been sympathetically renovated to create a family home now, and there are some fabulous pictures of it linked below in an article from the Grimsby Telegraph. And with that we hit Redbourne Road, where the biggest thing of note is directly opposite the old school. This is the main village shop, the Co-op. Okay, we're now in what you would call the centre of Hibaldstow, which is where you can catch a bus. I'm stood in the bus shelter. The bus services that call through Hibaldstow are the 91 between Curtin in Lindsey and Brigg, and the 161 between Market Raisin and Scunthorpe. This is Make It Perfect. It's a wedding shop according to Google, but in reality it does so much more than that. It caters for all events, from weddings to birthdays to Valentine's. Station Road Fish Bar is over the way. This is rated 4.7 stars out of 5 according to Restaurant Guru. If the food's good and the staff are friendly, what more can you ask for? The remainder of the route takes us up West Street, where there's a farm and a few more gorgeous old properties, like for example these two white houses separated by a hedgerow. The farm in question is Greenfield Farm at number 23 West Street, which is more than just a farm, it's also a pet shop. Greenfield Pet Shop is a family-run business run by a pet-orientated family. And that brings us to Cockett's Lane, which links us back to Station Road. Question: it was about 10 AM here. Is that too early to start drinking? Mind you, we're yet to see anywhere to stop for one. Okay, that brings us to Hibaldstow's public house, which is the Wheatsheaf. The Wheatsheaf Hotel is a newly renovated family-run country pub, and it has plenty of events too. On Thursdays there's a quiz night, and Tuesdays see the local pool team play here in the local league. We're back on Station Road again, and we're heading for the beginning. That means crossing over the Beck one more time. And now we're at the junction where the B1206 and B1207 merge. I imagine with just one number difference between them, they're very easy to get mixed up. Pelham View, where we began, is literally just off to the left beyond the junction. That's been a nice 50-minute walk, but there's still loads left to see. And just like magic, we're back where we started at Pelham View. We are not finished with Hibaldstow though by a long way. There is plenty of things still to see in this parish, starting with the old station, which is that away. So now we have a station to see, although it's no longer active. Right here is the station house off Station Road to the north of the village on the road to Scorby. That's important because this wasn't Hibaldstow Station, rather it was Scorby Station, which was renamed as Scorby and Hibaldstow sometime later. This here is Station Farm. It's flanked to the north by a swathe of open flat countryside which I couldn't resist taking a shot of. You all know what I'm like in my home county by now. Opened in 1849 by the Manchester, Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway on the line from Sheffield to Grimsby, this station closed in 1968. Curtin, Lindsey and Brigg were the next stations down the line. Next to the line is the massive Techcrete site. Founded in 1985, Techcrete design, manufacture and install architectural precast cladding serving the UK and Irish construction markets. They have two sites, one here and one in Balbriggan in the Republic of Ireland. This one is known as the Brigg facility. Okay, the next thing to see is linked to all those streets you've just seen that have references to milling. It's the old mill. And there it is, off Ings Lane. These are the largely intact remains of a combined wind and water mill with living accommodation and its associated outbuildings. The mill was built by a local millwright, James Middleton, in 1802. I thought I'd best take a few shots of the surroundings here, seeing as this is an area we didn't walk to. Streets like Millfield Close are a surefire giveaway that this area was once very different. The mill, with its accompanying range of contemporary outbuildings, is one of very few examples of combined wind and water mills in Britain. The design is particularly notable and probably unique. The undershot water wheel was removed in 1912 and the foresails in 1913. The mill pond was filled in the 1940s. Right, our next thing to see involves a long drive along South Car Road. It'll take us to a very nice bridge. So the road here is closed, you can't drive across this, but this is Hiboldstow Bridge. It's a very nice one, it's a bit like Hawkstow Bridge. Let's go and have a look at it. Hiboldstow Bridge is an iron arch bridge that spans the River Ancholme, which links Hiboldstow to the village of North Kelsey in the West Lindsey district of Lincolnshire. It has a plaque mounted in the centre of the bridge and it reads erected by JTB Porter & Co 1889 Lincoln. It's a grade 2 listed building and it has been since 1987. The bridge was used as the site to burn a Ford Transit van involved in the burglary of an ATM in the second half of 2019. As such, the bridge is now unusable as there are 3 large holes burnt into it. The North Kelsey side of the bridge is a single-track road known as Starham Road, which is used primarily by farm traffic. It's not an asphalted road and can be dangerous during adverse weather conditions as it runs on top of the embankment. It is, in places, badly potholed. Now behind me here at Hibaldstow Bridge you can see a radar tower. And that is because we're very close to RAF Hibaldstow, the former RAF Hibaldstow. That's next to have a look at. RAF Hibaldstow was commissioned in 1941 when No. 255 Squadron took up residence with their Bolton Pole Defiant night fighters. These planes had been drawn from RAF Curtin in Lindsey. In 1943, the airfield closed for a while before reopening later that year for No. 53 Operational Training Unit. During the early 1960s, it was sold off for use as agricultural land. It was also used for Sunday markets, as a skid pan by Lincolnshire Police, and by a local parachute club. The airfield was taken over in 1992 as a parachute centre, and it's run skydiving courses there continuously since this period. It made the headlines in 2003 thanks to the death of Army Cadet Stephen Hilder, who fell 4,000 metres to his death here. The tale of Margaret Horton is one I'll leave you to research yourselves. Now, of course, with this being private property, this is as close as I can get to the RAF base. So, yeah, hopefully you get the idea from this distance. To be fair, an airfield, generally speaking, looks the same as any other airfield. If you remember RAF Curtin in Lindsey, which is around here, and a few other of the RAF bases we've seen before, generally they're in the same sort of shape, that A shape with 3 runways. It's the same story here with Hibaldstow, effectively. So there you go. Even though we can't get onto the airbase, the last thing we're going to, we definitely can get onto, and that's coming after today's picture bit. So to finish with, we're taking a walk to Gainsthorpe Medieval Village, or the site of it at least, because it no longer exists. Now, we've seen the sites of many a medieval village on this channel before, but never anything quite like this. You'll see what I mean when we get there. To the west of Hibaldstow is the tiny hamlet of Gainsthorpe, and whilst the modern settlement is still very much here, just to the south is the site of a deserted medieval village. Effectively a very large field, this forms part of the present Gainsthorpe farm. As far as earthworks go, this is by far the best preserved site I've ever seen. This is looked after by English Heritage. There's a small car park from where a footpath of about 220 yards leads to the site. It has a typical medieval layout of sunken roads and raised rectangular tofts and crofts, clearly seen in the humps and hollows of the field. There was a pond too, according to the small information board. Amazingly, this is only part of the village. What now survives is an isolated fragment in a landscape that's been subject to modern arable cultivation. This is likely not the centre of the village. Gainsthorpe was mentioned in the Domesday Book. A windmill and a chapel were recorded in 1208. Further references from 1697 and 1699 indicate the settlement was deserted by that time. I don't think there's any question about it. This is the most pronounced deserted medieval settlement I think I've ever seen. Certainly the most pronounced on the channel. The undulations in the earthworks just give it away. Even without the signs, you'd be able to tell that something used to be here. And I can't help but think whether or not I'd be able to walk around this easily if this village was still here, if it wasn't deserted, if it was still an actual village. How hard would it be to plan a walk around Gainsthorpe? Who knows? I suppose we'll never know. Anyway, that is Gainsthorpe, and that is the parish of Hibaldstow, and I do hope you've enjoyed it. This weather hopefully will carry on when I get to my next one, which is not too far away. Time to move on. I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot. This has been the parish of Hibaldstow, and I'm out.